And welcoming you back here into the Orange Media Network studio. We are live. My name is Keenan Puncocher alongside Kalib LaChapelle here, bringing you live updates all through the night on the current election. Obviously, it's a big election night in the country, pinnacle election history being made. When we left here, we were touching a little bit on Connecticut. Hillary Clinton was able to retain the 7 electoral votes in Connecticut, while Donald Trump did win in Louisiana. Again, just to bring viewers up to speed here, it's 136 electoral votes currently for Donald Trump and 104 for Secretary Clinton. Before we left, we were talking also about how big it is for Donald Trump to at least be leading currently in some of these key battleground states. While we were in commercial break, we actually we saw that the Republicans, CNN projected, will retain the House. So the Republicans will retain the House of Representatives, as well as Speaker Paul Ryan has been reelected to the House of Representatives.
Yep. The House of Representatives is huge to pass a bill. You need all 3 corners of the government to work together, and then also pass judiciary review. So with the Republicans retaining control of the House and projected currently to take control of the Senate 70% to 30% by 538, it's looking like they're going to have the first two steps to passing a bill locked down.
Yeah, you hit it right there that it does require the House to have that support if you want to be passing any legislation. And it's important not only to look at it as, well, the Republicans just won the House, but if Donald Trump were to win, it makes it far more easier for him to maybe pass a piece of legislation now that he wants,
yes,
say maybe the wall, for example, in a Republican House.
And it also makes it far less likely that Hillary Clinton would be able to pass a bill.
Yeah.
You'd probably end up with another 4 years, like the 4 years we've had currently, where not a lot's been done.
Yeah, and it's kind of been a stalemate. Our Congress has a lot of flack by the lack of production that they've actually been able to produce. And so I think for a lot of people, it's going to be important to not only watch the presidential election, but also these smaller type of elections on a state-by-state basis as to who gets elected. We are on state.
And then also, we still have a vacancy in the Supreme Court.
Yes,
the president-elect will be the one that eventually fills
and
that
welcoming
vacancy,
you back
so
here into
there's a lot on the line right now.
Yeah, and you hit it there. We are missing not only one Supreme Court justice, but we were talking, and they've been talking as well nationally, that the next president could maybe even get 2 spots on the Supreme Court if someone were to pass away. 8 years, it could be more than possible. Someone retires. So big picture, there is a lot that could affect on a national basis in the country with the Supreme Court justices. And so we're about 8 minutes away from polls closing in some key battleground states out in Nevada, Utah. So we're about 8 minutes away from there. Just to bring everyone up to speed, it looks like Florida's still about 95% in. I'm going to look it up here on the computer. It looks about 95%, and Hillary Clinton is closing the gap. It looks about 49% towards Donald Trump, 47.8% for Hillary Clinton. Again,
about a 10,000 vote difference.
Yeah, and again, we can't stress the importance of Florida in this election. And again, I just go through the map here. Donald Trump's leading in Florida. He's leading in Georgia. He's leading in Ohio. He's leading in Wisconsin. He's leading in Michigan. He's leading early on in Pennsylvania. So it's interesting to take a look at and see, once again, it may not be a big lead right now, but maybe more so than people thought.
Yes, for sure. And then also just looking at the third-party candidates and how they're affecting this vote in Florida. Gary Johnson's currently sitting at 201,000 votes.
Wow.
And Jill Stein's actually sitting at 62,000 votes.
In Florida.
In Florida.
Wow.
And that's combined, that's 260,000 votes that would split between the 2 candidates. It's a hefty difference maker.
Yeah, that's over 3% of the vote right there almost. And
it's 3.1% of the vote.
Yeah, and when we're showing even here in Virginia, Gary Johnson pulling out about 3% in Virginia itself. So we're seeing in Florida and in places like Virginia, Gary Johnson is pulling in some support.
Yep, that's for sure. I think it's probably time to talk about the fact that we're getting down to the wire, and it's looking like a pretty even race. And Utah, Arizona, New Mexico are going to be probably where this race is decided. especially if Mr. Trump is able to pull out Florida, Ohio, or even both.
Yeah, if Donald Trump is able to carry a state like Florida and let's say Ohio, his path to 270 looks a lot more simplified than at the beginning of the day. And as we're looking at Virginia right now, we're getting breaking news. About 82% of the vote is in Virginia. It is a difference
close.
of 0.1% in Virginia. Hillary Clinton currently holds about a 5,700 vote lead in Virginia. Now, for me, I didn't expect it to be this close in Virginia. Tim Kaine from Virginia, he's never lost an election on which he's in a ballot in Virginia. Yes, it was leaning Democrat, I believe. It wasn't strong Democrat. But to me, to have Donald Trump very close in Virginia and to have it be really right now still a toss-up, does that kind of surprise you at all?
It does. I was expecting Virginia to go slightly red, just like the opposite of what most people were expecting. Tim Kaine, home state advantage it's a real thing in politics. Hillary Clinton won her home state in New York, which also happens to be Mr. Trump's home state, so she already took that one off the table. But throwing in Tim Kaine's home state of Virginia, that's recount territory right there. 5,700 votes.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think because in 2012, I think surprisingly so, the state went for spacing a blank here, for Barack Obama.
Yep.
I think a lot of people thought that maybe for Mitt Romney, he maybe had a chance in Virginia. Mm-hmm. You know, Virginia, historically, a lot of military presence there. Mitt Romney, Republican, tended to be more supportive of military action. And so it's interesting to see that right now, at least, again, it is within like about a 0.1 to 0.2% in favor of Hillary Clinton right now. But again, Virginia with 13 electoral votes is critical.
Yeah, it definitely is. And then Clinton also, she's climbing back up in Florida as well, closing the gap. It's now only about 90,000 votes.
About 90,000 votes, and I see that with about 95%. Again, it's probably going to be some time before we start seeing definitive numbers. Obviously, CNN doesn't feel safe. But right now, like you said, as I'm looking at it currently, 95% in Florida. Hillary Clinton does trail about a 1%. That's about a difference of about 20,000 to 30,000 votes. Again, a crucial state. We're also starting to see more numbers in Ohio. Just on a quick update there, about 66% of the vote in Ohio. Trump currently holds, astonishingly, about a 10% lead.
Yeah, 400,000 votes.
You know, I'd be curious to see maybe where the counting has, taken place so far. But going in right now, 66% of the vote in, 10% lead for Donald Trump in a state that holds 18 key electoral votes.
Yeah, and obviously counting always goes faster in rural communities, and those communities are more likely to vote red. It does go slower in city communities like Cleveland, like
larger populations.
Yeah, like larger population centers, and that's where obviously more of the population is housed. With 66% in, though, Donald Trump's given himself a big cushion.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here because the next wave of polls are closing in about 2.5 minutes. I'm sure we'll get some projections there. We want to make sure to keep you updated on there. So stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to also talk not only about the next polls, but about Wisconsin as well. Key state of Wisconsin that Paul Ryan is currently his home state of Wisconsin. So it's going to be interesting to see because currently in Wisconsin, I believe, it looks like Trump does have about a 6% lead in Wisconsin. So maybe Donald Trump and Paul Ryan necessarily haven't been the best of friends, but maybe Donald Trump can still carry that state of Wisconsin. So stay tuned. We're about 2 minutes away from the next polls closing, and we'll be right back here from Orange Media Network.